Hello, welcome to the clubhouse basement. This is my pleasant section of the room. If you ignore the concrete floors and the 7-foot ceilings and the fact that none of the corners are actually square, it starts to feel a little less like a dungeon for a second or two. I used to share this room with another guy, but he's in Australia doing a internship this semester. He originally lived in the attic, but the housing inspector came by and said it was unsafe, so I got a roommate. And honestly, he's the best roommate I've had in college. He'd do his thing in the attic until 2 or 3 in the morning, and then he'd come down. I'd already be asleep, and I'd leave before he woke up, and didn't have to make awkward conversation or anything like that. And I figured if I had a heart attack in my sleep, at least maybe I'd get a shout or a signal or a wave out to him before I croaked. Admittedly, though, he was kind of a weird dude. It's not entirely his fault. His circumstances just kind of set up some low-hanging comedic fruit for the rest of us to pick at. It's hard to take you seriously when you share an attic with a bat. But he did get me thinking about some of the other roommates I've had the pleasure of living with. First, there was a guy called Eric. Honestly, my strongest memory of him is that one time he forgot to wear socks with his shoes, and he made the whole room smell like feet for a day or two. He did take me to a party once, though. I mean, there was no alcohol, and I was the only white person there, but I think his intentions were good. Then there was Jared. He had a lot of good friends and a real social life, which was kind of upsetting to me, but more upsetting than that was the fact that he would leave bananas in the room, even well past when they were starting to go bad. And I don't mean it happened once, it was a regular occurrence. Every day, you'd walk in, and on the microwave would be sitting one banana, sometimes multiple rotting bananas just sitting there. There are squirrels who gather and store nuts for winter with less passion than this man had for the collection of these decaying pieces of fruit. And apparently, this habit didn't seem at all odd to him. But I think this year has brought a lot into perspective for me. I feel like I've learned a lot about myself. That's one of the things I'm actually most grateful for about living in this place. I've learned that, for instance, I have a pathological fear of mold, first and foremost, as well as a fear of lead poisoning, carbon monoxide poisoning, and spider crickets, which are a real thing that really do exist. They like to guard the entrance of the shower, and when you scare them, they hop at whatever's scaring them, which is usually me naked holding a flip-flop. But I think the mold was the most impactful thing, so let's talk about the mold. So the basement has flooded several times in the 108-year history of this house. It's a shame because it's actually a really cool place. It's a historically protected building. The architect who built this house actually did a lot of work all over this town. He built this house and the house next door for his own family. But unfortunately, this place just seems doomed to be occupied by a dozen dudes at a time who like throwing ragers every other weekend. And the property itself is managed by Green Street Realty, who have no interest in doing anything, and actually, I think, actively enjoy doing as bad as they possibly can. You might think that's just any run-of-the-mill landlord, but it's not. Over Thanksgiving break, for instance, they changed all the outlets upstairs from 3-prong outlets to 2-prong outlets, but we weren't having electrical issues upstairs. There's no hot water from the sink faucet. A section of the basement is just boarded off with plywood because it was destroyed by flooding, and the laundry room, there's a pipe that just occasionally shoots poop out. But they took the time to come out here, ignore all of those problems, and just make the situation upstairs worse. I mean, it's a huge power move, and I do respect them for that, but you just feel like there has to be someone who's better equipped to manage this property. But anyway, the flooding has caused some problems down here, especially in this room, which used to be carpeted. So they tore out the carpet before I got here because it was just moldy and gross, and they bleached the floor, got rid of all the mold, and the problem was solved. Except it wasn't, because I have a deep-seated fear of mold. I was convinced I had toxic mold syndrome. My central nervous system was being damaged every day. Sure, I didn't have a cough or irritated eyes or lungs, and the CDC says mold can't cause memory damage, or at least there's no evidence that it can. But there's also weird anti-mold forums on the internet where if you dig deep enough down, and you have to go pretty deep, they assure you that they will believe you. They know the damage that mold is causing to your life, even if no one else will believe you. So I didn't know who to trust. So I reasoned that the source of the mold in my room was the carpet in the closet, which hadn't been removed with the rest of it. That's where the mold was coming from, and that's what was making me sick. So it's Sunday. I've just come back from our long run, and there's a house nearby that's hosting a little pancake breakfast for some people on the team. But I don't go there. I don't eat pancakes with my friends. I put on my mold killing gear, and I go to town. nuking the floor with bleach was a bit of a wake-up call. You always wonder why you end up with these sort of, weird roommates, and then you find yourself holding a bottle of bleach, wearing your short shorts, a mask, and latex gloves, and suddenly you realize that it's just God keeping you and them away from the rest of civilization. So, my apologies to the Batman, to the Banana Hoarder, and to Mr. Stinky Feet, because apparently they had it worse.